new emerging type of DNA collection that could help investigators catch criminals, even if they're cleaning up crime scenes. It's called eDNA, or environmental DNA. Studies have been done where scientists have been able to collect human DNA from the air and air conditioning units. They're also doing studies on collection from the soil. There's no doubt you're going to hear a lot more about eDNA in criminal cases.
Pretty soon, you ain't going to be able to get away with anything. DNA testing the air, the dirt, and the air conditioning.
Hot and sunny day in the middle of nowhere, a man was driving his car until he spotted a van. In order to get to where that van is at, the man must turn on a road where no cars can drive on. So if you go out into this place called Death Valley, the name speaks for itself.
Yeah, but if you have a minivan, this is literally crazy. I mean, this is like in a minivan, two-wheel drive minivan, this road would have seemed pretty intense.
Yeah, you have to go really slow.
It's this long desert road, long desert place in the middle of nowhere. It's certain places that you have to avoid. Well, when he spotted this van, he noticed that this van was so far that they shouldn't even make it that far. So he goes up and he examines this van and don't see anyone in the.
I definitely wouldn't went up there and examined anything. I would have just mind my business, kept it rolling.
Van, but he noticed a flat tire. Whoever was in this van got stuck.
Yeah, I'm not sure we should go for that. It's like, this is the road right here. I don't know, I get stuck, man. Am I sinking in?
Tad bit, not right now.
How about the front end?
Not yet.
Even though a search happened to look for this family because, of course, they're missing, they showered everywhere for days on days on days. I'm talking about literally almost everywhere, and couldn't find the family. But what they did discover is that they was in full survival mode, of course, because they found a sleeping bag. They found food wrappers, they found cat holes where they would use the bathroom at, they found beer, and I can only imagine spending the night out, or multiple nights, in this place, stuck, knowing that we have to walk out and try to find our way to safety. And they told us that and they came out here all alone, confused and lost, just knowing that their day is gonna come anytime now.
Alright, you guys, so this is the exact location where Egbert and Cornelia had come. They came right here. They probably explored this place. I think we should too. What do you guys say? They signed right here. This is where they signed, just like this. Who signed it today? Is someone signed today?
It's signed like every 3 days.
This creepy dentist was sentenced to 180 years in prison, as if going to the dentist wasn't already scary enough. So this is Joseph Clarence Cox. Joseph was initially arrested in April of 2021 after some really disturbing allegations were made. You see, 8 former employees of Joseph's testified that he had assaulted them during business hours. And these assaults in the middle of the workplace in the middle of the day went beyond touching and groping. In fact, 2 of the employees stated that they were raped and sodomized.
Oh no, but look at him. Dude look like a total creep. I wouldn't trust going under no kind of anesthesia with him in my mouth. No diddy.
But this abuse wasn't limited to employees. You see, 3 former patients actually testified that Joseph had abused them while they were undergoing dental work. So basically, this guy's dental office was an absolute house of horrors. In the middle of the day, during working hours, he was assaulting employees all throughout the building. And then when it came to patients, Joseph was giving them the drugs, getting them ready for procedures, and then began touching them and doing things to them while they were under. So yeah, once all of this came to light,
That's what I'm talking about right there.
Joseph's wife of 10 years immediately divorced him. And after a couple years, Joseph was eventually sentenced to 180 years in prison. Needless to say, he's going to be in there for a very, very long time, thank God. Here's a GPS image of what the dental office looks like. I can't tell if this is a new clinic or what, but it's absolutely unfathomable to think of the horrors that this building has witnessed. If you want to hear more true crime stories, listen to the podcast that I co-host with my wife, Courtney, Murder in America. It's available on all streaming platforms now.
More gun-related crimes. Take a look.
From the second gunshots ring out and the calls to 911 come in,
911, what is the address of your emergency?
police could be zeroing in on the gunman. The gunshot detection technology uses a system of microphones, sensors, and sonar to pinpoint on a map the exact location of the gunfire.
Bullets have no names on them.
All y'all shooters better be careful out there. As soon as y'all finish popping off, pulling up.
Never underestimate any common sense of life, because it's very likely that you can use a cocoa full of corn when you rob a bank. There is just no extra space, just turn on the vibration device below. You can hold another puppet in the cup. This is the principle of quantum mechanics. And this group of robbers in front of us used this principle to rob banks. They first put vibrators on the four corners of the wall, and spread a curtain of words, then start the sound instrument. The wall vibrates violently when the sprint resonance reaches 100%. And using an instrument to shoot a rope of pronouns, amazingly, the rope went straight through the wall. Then the robber held the rope and wore it near the machine, keeps vibrating for only 2 minutes. They must complete the task within time. This time, the target is cabinet 610. The robbers put blasting gel on the cracks in the safe. After a while, yellow smoke began to rise from the cabinet. The door was broken down, then go into the iron box inside. However, they still underestimate the box. Time is short. They quickly carried the box and hung it on the rope, pushing him through the wall with great care. They also retreated, but then the robber who recovered the rope encountered problems. Ace, the rope can't be pulled. There is only 10 seconds left. He pulled off the rope very hard. Go out no matter your life, but it was a second late. The machine stopped moving at this moment. He was stuck in the wall and saw this scene. My friends were filled with fear. The boss took out his gun and killed him. They ran away with their guns. It wasn't long before Fogler arrived at the scene. They felt amazing when they saw this scene. How did this family get through the solid? This does not agree with Newton's law. In the face of doubt, the doctor gave an explanation. In fact, most of the solids in our lives are empty. In fact, it is not difficult to prove that robbers should use quantum physics knowledge to pass through solids, but the only thing that puzzled him was that it took a lot of money to study such cutting-edge quantum physics. And dozens of banks can't let go of those funds, with so much money. Then why did the robbers rob the bank? What's the important thing in the box?
Imagine that kind of technology getting out. If something like that happened, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't tell nobody. They don't want to plant no seeds. You'll see people walking through walls every day.
Have you ever heard of Alonzo Brooks? Yes, I have covered his case before multiple times, and no, I will not stop covering this case until it is solved. Alonzo was born on May 19th of 1980. Alonzo was of mixed race, so his mother was Hispanic while his father was African American. Alonzo was lovingly known as Zoe to his family, and he was described as mild-mannered and just wanting to make people laugh, and he was just a good-natured, good human. When Alonzo was just 23 years old, he was living in Gardner, Kansas with his family. On April 3rd of 2004, he was invited to go to a party in Lansing, Kansas, which was about an hour south of Gardner where he lived. This party was for someone who was getting ready to go into the service, and depending on what source you look at, there was anywhere from 50 to 100 people in attendance at this party. Alonzo seemed to be having a good time here at this party. He was playing cards, playing party games, and he seemed to be, overall, he seemed to be having a good time. But there is some talk of there being some racial slurs thrown around because Alonzo was the only person of color at this party. And again, depending on what source you look at, some people say that Alonzo just kind of let this roll off his shoulders, while other sources say that he was getting pretty upset about this and there was almost a fight. Whatever went on or didn't go on at the party was eventually resolved, and this group of guys that had gone to this party had come in two separate cars. One of the cars decided that they wanted to go back to, or closer to Gardner, to go to a different party, while Alonzo and the friend he rode with, Justin, decided to stay in Lansing and stay at this party. Alonzo had ridden with a man named Justin. He was Alonzo's ride back to Gardner after this party was over, and sometime during the night they ran out of cigarettes and decided that Justin would run into town and grab another box of cigarettes. After leaving the party and trying to go get these cigarettes, Justin would call Alonzo and tell him that his car had become disabled and he would not be able to pick up Alonzo from this party. But according to Justin, there was another person at the party that could bring Alonzo home that night. So Justin left the party and Alonzo stayed at the party. The next morning, Alonzo's mother went into his bedroom and realized that his bed had never been slept in and Alonzo had not been home. This was very unlike him because Alonzo was very much the kind of person that would either come home for the evening.
He probably was over some chick house. Who knows?
Or would at least call and let people know where he was. After Alonzo's mother called several of his friends to see if they knew where he was, no one knew where he was. They started getting really worried about him. After not being able to locate Alonzo, his family decided to drive to Lansing, to the place where the party was at, to see if they could find him. They were unable to find Alonzo at the site where the party had been, and in fact it looked like there hadn't even been a party at all. So they decided to call police, and police did start looking for Alonzo pretty quickly after he was reported missing. This is where the party was at, and Alonzo's friends and family did find his hat and a boot that belonged to Alonzo along the side of the road, but it almost looked like someone had thrown them out the window while they were driving by. But there was absolutely no sign of Alonzo anywhere. It didn't take long for the KBI to get involved in the investigation either, and they had people come in and search this creek that was behind the house to see if they could find Alonzo in the creek. The search party that was searching the creek said that the water was about ankle deep, and they searched the entire thing, and if Alonzo had been in that creek, they would have found him, but they didn't. The entire time that the investigation is going on, Alonzo's family is asking investigators if they can come in and search the area where the party was, and they are not allowed on the property. That was until May 1st of 2004, almost a month later. Alonzo's family is finally allowed onto the property to search. And within 2 hours of searching, they find Alonzo's body on the creek bed. Alonzo's brother said that he looked like he was just sleeping on the creek bed. The medical examiner did try to find a cause of death and were unable to do so. There was no sign of drowning or no broken bones, nothing, like no blunt force trauma. They really could not find a cause of death when it came to Alonzo. It would be shortly after this that Alonzo's family would receive a letter from the KBI saying that they didn't think that there was anything nefarious that had gone on with Alonzo's death, even though he was a perfectly healthy 23-year-old. It wasn't until Netflix did a reboot of Unsolved Mysteries that the KBI finally decided to exhume Alonzo's body and try to find another cause of death. It was because of this reboot that Alonzo's case was reopened and people are starting to look at it again. Obviously, there is so much more to this case, and nothing in this case sits right with me. Like the fact that Alonzo had his wallet in his pocket. He was found with his wallet in his pocket, and he had several papers in his wallet that were untouched by water. Yet they're trying to say that he was in this creek for over a month. Sorry, and I should have made that more clear. They searched the creek entirely. They had an entire month to search this property, and they were unable to find Alonzo's body, but just...
Hold on. First, she said that 2 hours after they start searching, they found his body on the creek bed. Is she capping? She making this story up?
2 hours after the family was allowed to search, they were able to find his body. And then they said that he had been in the creek the whole time. Like, it doesn't make any sense. If they searched the entire creek, why didn't they find Alonzo's body? It just doesn't make sense. And if he was in the creek, why were these papers in his wallet untouched by water? Nothing about this case sits right with me, and I please just urge you to look into this case a little bit deeper. There is so much stuff on the internet about this case, and it just doesn't sit right with me, and it never will until it is solved. You just cannot convince me that Alonzo was a perfectly healthy 23-year-old who just goes missing and then winds up dead on a creek bed somewhere.
When renovating an old home, you never know what you're going to find. But for a homeowner in San Francisco, finding a 145-year-old coffin made of lead, bronze, and glass was not something that came to mind. On May 9th, 2016, remodelers discovered this perfectly preserved coffin buried in the resident's backyard. The coffin itself is fitted with 2 viewing windows, so when they cleaned them off and they looked inside, they were surprised to find the preserved body of a young girl who had long blonde hair. She was wearing a long lace dress and also had a flower cross that was laying on top of her chest. Upon finding this, the homeowner notifies their local medical examiner's office, and then they say, okay, well, we could deal with this body for you, but you do have to spend up to $7,000 for us to handle removing the body from your premises. Could you imagine finding a body on your property and then being told, well, it's your property, you deal with it? And it's like, well, this was here before I was here. It's over 145 years old. She didn't know that at the time, but still. Luckily, the homeowner was put in touch with an organization called the Garden of Innocence. This is an organization that buries the unidentified bodies and abandoned bodies of young children. And the founder of this organization was able to give this girl a proper burial. But also, they were able to research the identity of this little girl. Records show that her name was Edith Cook, and that also she passed away in October of 1876 of undernourishment, and she was just shy of her 3rd birthday. Turns out that the homeowner's property was initially part of a cemetery, and the cemetery itself stopped taking new burials in 1902. In the 1930s, all of these bodies were exhumed and brought to a new location, all except little Edith. And for some reason, she was left behind. They don't know why, but in the end, she did get a new burial, and they also were able to identify a long-living relative of little Edith to this day, which was pretty cool.
In 1999, Joan Murray, an avid skydiver's parachute did not deploy, which sent her plummeting 14,500 feet, and she plowed right into an ant colony. This happened in North Carolina, so it was specifically fire ants, and that might have been what kept her alive. It's estimated that she received over 200 stings and bites from the fire ants to her body, and that surge of adrenaline when you get stung or bitten by an ant is probably what kept her alive. This was also her 36th time skydiving. Now, falling from that high, it's insane that she even lived, but obviously she suffered a bunch of injuries. She had a shattered pelvis, a punctured lung, a lot of blood loss. She also had broken ribs. She underwent over 20 surgeries, and she was in a coma for about 2 weeks. In that time, she developed an infection and apparently a blood clot in her lungs. She was given a super low survival rate, but she somehow miraculously survived. She had to slowly learn to walk again. She used a cane and other types of physical therapy, and then 2 years after the incident, she went right back into skydiving. That's kind of crazy how these ants probably saved her because of that adrenaline rush. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section below.
Skydiving and landing on an anthill and surviving? I hope she giving all praises up. I'll walk around thinking I'm not even alive, like I'm a ghost or something after that. She lucky.
This woman murdered her husband, tried to frame her daughter for it, and then kill her too. In April 1990, Stacy Castor married Michael Wallace. She called him the love of her life. The pair seemed perfect for each other, but behind closed doors, the reality was very different. They had 2 daughters together, Ashley and Bree, and Stacy seemed to take to motherhood really well. However, she told her family that her husband was drinking heavily. They were struggling financially and saw very little of each other. Then in 1999, Michael's health started to deteriorate. He was struggling to walk, talk, and was getting very sick. Tragically, in January 2000, he passed away. Doctors were really stumped as to what mystery illness had taken his life. They were interested in performing an autopsy to try and find out, but Stacy declined. She received over $50,000 in life insurance and started dating again. She married a man named David Castor in 2003, after meeting him just a year after her first husband passed away. Again, on the surface, things look picture perfect. Then another dramatic situation would unfold. On the 22nd of August 2015, Stacy rang police. She explained that her husband had locked himself in the bedroom and wouldn't answer the door. Police rushed round, broke down the door, and had a horrific shock. David was deceased in their bed. Investigators noticed there was a green liquid in a glass by the bed, and they presumed that this must have been a self-unaliving via antifreeze. However, they were very concerned when they saw something on David's will. He'd left his entire fortune to Stacy and had completely left his son out of it. The forensic team also found Stacy's fingerprints on the glass with the antifreeze in. That's when investigators started examining the first death of Stacy's first husband in a little bit more detail. They exhumed his body and also found antifreeze inside of him too. Had Stacy murdered both her husbands? But that was not the end of the poisonings. A few days later, Stacy invited her 20-year-old daughter Ashley round. They were having a drink together and suddenly Ashley felt very sleepy. The following morning, Ashley's sister Bree failed to be able to wake Ashley up. Ashley was rushed to hospital where she did thankfully regain consciousness. That's when she was told something shocking. She was found with a suicide note. The note was marked from Ashley and admitted to killing both Michael and David. Ashley had not written this note. It became apparent that Stacy had tried to frame her daughter for the murder and also tried to kill her too. In 2009, Stacy was convicted of second-degree murder of David and forging his will. She was also convicted of the attempted murder of Ashley. She was never charged in the killing of her first husband, Michael. She maintained her innocence until she passed away in prison of a heart attack in 2016.
An evil man murders his beautiful wife in front of their daughter and her own mother for finally moving on with her life. What's up, my urban crimers? I got another crazy story for y'all tonight. Make sure y'all go ahead and hit that share button to bring awareness to cases like this. Also drop a like and hit that follow button for more true crime content. This is the terrible story of Chandelle Harris. She was brutally murdered by her evil husband while taking their daughter to swim practice. This story takes us to Miami, Florida, known for its beautiful beaches, warm weather, and unique residents. Chandelle Harris was born to a very loving family in Miami, Florida. Growing up, she was known to have a very beautiful spirit. She had many friends, and she was known to love politics. After high school, she went on to pursue a degree in political science at Florida International University and also graduated with honors in 2013. After college, she went on to have a beautiful daughter. That's her picture right there in the pink, and truly loved her. Chandelle wanted to teach her everything that she knew and also gave her the world. Chandelle wanted to change the world with all of her ideas and actions. She was involved in many organizations like the NAACP and also volunteered at local schools in her community. But sadly, she would never gain this opportunity. Chandelle met her husband, 45-year-old Carl Watts Jr., back in 2020 through mutual friends during the pandemic. He was very charming and handsome, and this made Chandelle extremely attracted to him. The relationship was going amazing. Carl would always express his love for Chandelle publicly, and he would even go on to propose to her, and the two would eventually get married. Chandelle was in love. She thought that she had found the man of her dreams and also a man that could be a great father to her daughter. But Carl was hiding an evil past from Chandelle, and shortly after their marriage, it was
always an evil past, ain't it? People be so mysterious these days.
Slowly began to show. Things would slowly begin to change between the two. Carl became very controlling over Chandelle. He tracked her every move and also isolated her from even speaking with her family. And he himself would even go on to cheat on Chandelle and father multiple children with other women. Chandelle threatened to leave him multiple times, but she would always take him back after he threatened to harm either her or himself on multiple occasions. Chandelle felt trapped. She didn't just want to leave the man whom she once called the love of her life. On the night of April 3rd, 2022, Carl and Chandelle would get into a heated argument at their home over his constant infidelity towards her. The argument would grow bigger and bigger, and this would lead Carl to actually pulling out a pocket knife and stabbing Chandelle multiple times. Thankfully, she would survive and call the police. But Carl...
How you get caught cheating and then you stab somebody? That's backwards.
...would flee the scene. An arrest warrant was issued for him once the police arrived and did their investigation, but he was nowhere to be found. Chandelle was finally fed up. She would tend to her stab wounds and would begin to go online and look for her divorce papers. But sadly, she would never get that opportunity to leave. On that very next day, April 4th, 2022, Chandelle would take her daughter to swim lessons like any other Sunday. But little did she know the danger that was lurking ahead. Upon arrival, Chandelle would be met by Carl near the pool area where he demanded that she drop the charges from him on the previous night. She declined his offer and and also told him how she was finally ready to leave him, and also how she planned to file for divorce on that following week. This would anger Carl, which ultimately led him to do the unthinkable. Carl will pull out a 9mm firearm and shoot Chandelle multiple times in front of her daughter, mother, and also other pool guests.
Is it really that serious? Like, it's too many fish in the sea, man. Just chunk it up as a loss and move on. It really ain't that deep.
He would then once again flee the scene, but was somehow tracked down and detained by security at the community center in which her daughter was having swimming lessons. Police would arrive and immediately began CPR on Chandelle, but it was too late. She was pronounced dead on the scene by paramedics shortly after the shooting. Police would then interview multiple witnesses on the scene, including Chandelle's mother and her own daughter, who all pointed to Carl as the shooter. Carl was then immediately arrested and taken into custody for questioning. He stated that he had committed this crime because he couldn't fathom the fact that Chandelle was actually going to finally leave him. Police will also gain a search warrant for his home.
I mean, if you keep cheating so many times, you expect the person to keep staying? Like, who wants to get treated bad?
And there, they would discover the evil past that Carl was hiding from Chandelle and also the world. When police began searching, they would find the bloody knife that Carl had used to stab Chandelle on the previous night. They will also find a cell phone and a diary. Police will also mysteriously find photos and documents of Traquita Scott. She was a woman who mysteriously went missing in June of 2014. She also dated Carl around that time.
Carl was a savage. He seemed pretty possessive. Like, let him go, man. Like, that's crazy.
And they also shared a child together. Carl denied knowing the whereabouts of Chiquita, but as police investigated more, they would catch him in a series of lies. Phone records would show that Carl was actually the last person who had spoken to Chiquita before she went missing. He was also in the Liberty City area where she was last seen, and also where her abandoned vehicle was found. Vicky Simmons is also believed to have been one of Carl's victims. She was a beautiful...
We got a serial killer on our hands. I hope Carl is locked away somewhere.
woman who also dated Charles before Traquita and Chandelle. Vicky Simmons was mysteriously shot in the summer of 2009, and till this day, police have yet to find her killer. Vicky's family, on the other hand, suspect Carl of committing the murder after he became very abusive towards her shortly before her murder. Carl will also attempt to kidnap an 18-year-old girl at a bus stop one day, but she would somehow get away. Carl was eventually charged with second-degree murder and the shooting of his wife, Chandelle Harris, and received a life sentence without the possibility of parole. This was a very sad and tragic case, and I send my deepest condolences to the family of Chandelle Harris. May her name live on through her family and beautiful young daughter. And please, guys, share this story to bring awareness to more cases like this.